Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Good warm afternoon from the beautiful city of Abuja. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's edition of Money Radio. Today being Thursday, we are on to the energy focus segment of the program. We are broadcasting from the beautiful city of Abuja from the studio of Leadership Podcast. Today we are discussing a topic that says finding lasting solution to the fuel scarcity and subsidy conundrum. In the studio to discuss that with me is Anthony Uko. Is our when it comes to energy issues, you can call her a Koyashenti. Yes, you are in good company when listening to on these issues. So it is my pleasure to welcome you again to today's program, and I'm your host, Case Hammond. Nse, since I wouldn't say January, but sometime around February, March, we started having from the federal capital and of course Lagos and other cities in the federation suffered fuel scarcity. We have been having that problem. If there is any respite, it will just be for about a week or two. Since then, we have been having fuel shortage, despite the fact that the federal government earmarked 4 trillion naira for fuel subsidy. But as of now, that 4 trillion naira has been spent already, and we still don't have that, a solution to the problem. What is going on?
It has really been a very trying period for Nigerians and indeed businesses since
Businesses.
since the beginning of the year. Like you rightly noted, it's been from one scarcity into the other. The respite has been very, very
Minimal. I
minimal.
wouldn't say
In
more
fact,
than not more than 2 weeks we have had any
we've not
respite.
even had like a full 2 weeks respite. Before, after 1 week, you see the queues coming back,
Exactly.
and then the cycle begins all over again. And the very depressing aspect of it is that the major marketers that were the ones selling at the agreed price of 165
Yeah.
are now clamoring that that price is no longer
Tenable. But
realistic.
don't be shocked that, of course, it's you can call it official right now in Abuja
Yes.
because what people are buying from the filling stations in Abuja
Mm.
is one between 180 and 190. There is no doubt in that fact.
Yeah,
I
no.
bought. So let me. Sorry for cutting you off. The previous week I stayed in a queue for 9 hours to get fuel, and then last week I stayed in the queue for about six. No, not 6 hours. About 2 3 hours. And I got fuel, but it was sold for 190. It
And
was sold for 190, and people I've been talking to. I'm talking about the filling stations, the traditional filling stations
yeah.
that you can call. If there is no fuel in the entire city, they have fuel. They are selling it for between 180 and 190 now. That is fact, and it looks like it is from the background official
Mm,
because Moma said they cannot sell below that price
yes.
because of the cost of transportation. Yes.
And again, when we look at the huge fund that have been committed into paying for fuel subsidy, and then comparing it with what was before now. Last week, either last week or the other week, the House of Representatives they launched a probe into the actual consumption level, Nigeria's fuel consumption level, because we've had a lot of varying figures coming out from NNPC about what Nigeria actually consumes. And then the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation came up with a figure of 4.2 trillion naira that has been spent on subsidy between um, 2017 and 2022.
4.2 trillion.
Yes,
You mean compounded, cumulative
cumulative figure
of
of
4.2 trillion
4.2 trillion from 2017
to
to
2022.
2022
And
from
then,
their records.
yes,
And then the federal government is asking for 4
4 trillion
trillion for this
for this
year
year.
only.
Oh my God.
Undoubtedly, there has been an increase in the price of petroleum in the international,
Globally, that's fact.
globally. That
Yeah,
is
but
a
not that,
fact.
not that
But
jump.
that is what I'm like. Okay, so with this huge amount compared to what has been spent, and then with the differences we've had, the huge increase in the volume that Nigeria purportedly consumes from about 35
A million liters per
million
day.
liters per day to even as much as up to 101 million
But
liters
this is not
in
fair on
recent
Nigerian people,
months.
really.
So, what really is the way? Why is Nigeria still having these issues?
This is not fair. There is need for proving, all these issues. It's not fair, and people are suffering this thing. You know, we may look at the problem from the surface and think, is it not to go and queue up? But there are many things that go on in the background that you and I don't see. We can only imagine, but we can imagine only to an extent. Just to divert a little bit from the topic that we were discussing, um, before we started discussion in the studio, we were talking from the background of how, because of this Kuje jailbreak, there have been such there have been roadblocks, and there have been searches going on since maybe the end of last week to the beginning of this week, and it's actually causing serious hold up for people who are going home at night. We were discussing that. Just like I was in one of those roadblocks last night, one of those traffic situation last night, and I was wondering if there are pregnant women who are in labor to deliver in this hold up, they could actually either succeed in delivering in the car, or the life of mother and child could be in jeopardy. Those are some of the things that happen at the background that we don't see when we see just people fighting, to get home or to go to. That's the way it is. Now, I'm just using that as an analogy. When people have to queue for 9 hours, when people have to pay from their noses, and there is just this issue of governance or this accountability issue that a few persons are just filling their stomachs and allowing the masses to suffer. God does not like those kind of things. Not to talk about humans.
Yeah, well, that is on one side. Then on the flip side, we have seen the other petroleum products that are not regulated.
Yes,
We've
like
seen
diesel.
the price of diesel going
In fact,
and
it's a steep rise.
yes, from less than 200
Yes.
per liter
Mhm.
to as high as 800 right
Yes.
now, and
Yes.
analysts are expecting it to hit um, 1,000 and above.
Yes.
And then we've also seen a steep rise in the price of gas,
Yes.
cooking
Cooking
gas,
gas,
in kerosene, in
kerosene.
aviation fuel, and the rest of it. And those ones are not they are not regulated. They are deregulated. And so we are now saying, okay, um, most people are now calling for removal of fuel subsidy from petrol, and we've seen how that is playing out in other products that are not regulated: diesel, kerosene, cooking gas, aviation fuel. And the level of inflation in the country, the prices of foodstuff are so high, commodities, there's the masses hardly have money left
To buy
to
anything.
buy anything.
To buy anything.
So how what if we look at it in connection to petrol, how do you think the masses are going to cope if um, subsidy is removed from petrol?
You know, there are reports that among the nations of the world, Nigeria is among the least tax-paying nations in the world. But when you come to the issue of paying tax, inflation is actually a tax. Inflation is a tax. And when you put all of that into the mix, Nigerians are among the highest paying tax. The Nigerians pay among the highest, how do I put it? They are among the highest tax paying nations in the world. How do I mean? What percentage of your income do you spend on the basics? It may not, what we call tax may not be going to government coffers, but actually it's a tax because when it comes to the issue of inflation, unless it may even be going to government coffers. Take for example, um, let's paint this typical scenario. The government wants to pay some debt or to offset some whatever it is, or to make some purchases and decides to go and print money. Printing that money will cause inflation. Inflation is going to affect the people. But who benefits? Is the government that pays or that printed that money and is going to use it to do other things. That is a tax from the background. So people are suffering.
And we've actually seen this.
This thing
We've
is
actually
impoverishing
seen this.
people.
We have seen this playing out because as we speak, ways and means to government
Yes.
is actually up to 19 trillion
Imagine that.
as we speak.
You see that?
So which means that the government has actually been printing money to spend.
Yes.
And it's been reflecting.
It's been reflecting.
The country is not producing enough to be able to cushion the effect of this much money pumped into the system.
Look, the fact is, Nigeria needs resetting. This whole system of running the country is not working. It's not working. And there is need to reset. When I say reset, Nigeria needs to reset its priorities. Nigeria needs to reset the way business is done, the way government is run, the way everything is done. Because this is a country that is rich in both human and natural resources. Look at the performance of Nigerians outside there. Nigerians are among the take for example in the US, Nigerians are among uh, foreign or not just African Americans. We're talking about among foreigners in the US. The Nigerian population is about the highest in terms of educated. In terms of being educated, Nigerians are among the highest populated population in terms of being educated. And when it comes to performance, Nigerians perform brilliantly in other areas of life. Why don't those same Nigerians come here and perform? It's the system of government and the way things are done. These things need to be reset. I don't know. It's difficult to say, but it's like this. The suffering that just as I was coming, there was an information on the news that the United Nations says that Nigeria is not meeting up with Millennium Development Goals. Now, instead of meeting up with those goals, Nigeria is actually regressing. And that regression is more people are being impoverished. There are reports that up to 100 billion people are being impoverished, all because of these same things. Why don't we have a fixed policy that will tackle the issues that bring all of the suffering? We may sound like we are diverting this, but when it comes to suffering, people are suffering. We are talking about fuel. It's something that is under the ground, that is in abundance. By the 1980s, Nigeria was exporting fuel products. Nigeria is right now importing 100% fuel products. 40% of the country's foreign income goes to the importation of fuel. Right now, when it comes to debt servicing, it takes close to 100% of the country's revenue. So what is going on? Why can't things be fixed? These things are not rocket science.
Data from the from OPEC
Yes,
shows that Nigeria in 2021, Nigeria exported crude to the tune of about $27 billion
yes.
and exported um, finished product to the tune of 70 something billion in the same year. So how do you balance that? Nigeria is what is selling crude at is not even up to half of what it's using to um, to import
We
the
bought.
finished product.
Yes.
And we are seeing this play out in the revenues that are available since the beginning of the year. In fact, even from last year, the NNPC did not release
Anything.
anything.
Let's, these things actually increase the blood pressure. Let's take a short break. The time will come back so that we don't have increased blood pressure in the studio. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll discuss more about this issue. Stay tuned.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back, viewers. You're still on to Energy Focus of Money Radio, and the topic we're discussing is finding lasting solution to the fuel scarcity and subsidy conundrum. Nigeria has already spent what was budgeted for the fiscal year 2022 of fuel subsidy. It was 3 trillion, in the budget in the 2022 budget,
Yeah,
but then it
initially.
was initially, and then when the federal government announced that they wouldn't stop fuels subsidizing fuel, there was a subsequent supplementary budget sent to the National Assembly for approval, and then it was upped to 4 trillion.
Mm.
The country reportedly has spent more than that on fuel subsidy, and we are in July, and we are still having problem with queues. There are queues everywhere. You come to the nation's capital, and this thing is affecting productivity.
Of course.
The other night, I was driving home, and I saw from the front side
Mm.
of this filling station, which I wouldn't like to mention here,
Mm.
from the front side of the filling station, there were just about 3 or 4 cars. And I saw that as an opportunity, and I just swerved. That was bad driving anyway. I swerved to go and see if I could enter the queue, maybe thinking that there was just 3 or 4 cars to buy fuel. It was around 11:30, 12 o'clock. You wouldn't believe what I saw. There was more than a mile long queue. I went and I told, in fact, I didn't see the end. I'm saying a mile, but it was probably more than that.
More than that.
Yes, I had to just, when I turned, I just found my way straight and I found my way home. Because, you know, imagine 12 midnight, people are queuing a mile behind.
Yes, and a lot of
How do you expect that person to be productive at work the following day? It's to sleep on duty.
A number of them have even been robbed.
Robbed, yes. They have been robbed. Now, how do you expect a person like that to be productive when he gets to work?
So, like we've brought out the issues of fuel subsidy, the amount is gulping, how much of it should have been spent on other things, and on the other hand, the suffering that people are going through, and mind you, the suffering would even be much more if subsidy is removed.
Yes.
So it's really a conundrum where how can Nigeria find its way out of this?
I have to mention that the federal government under President Buhari did something that is commendable when he said this is not the right time. Earlier this year, when he said this is not the right time to remove subsidy. I understand. From an economic point of view, yes, it was the right time to remove subsidy. But from a social point of view, it was not the right time. Look, people, when you talk about minimum wage, this minimum wage that we continue to talk about is it's a farce.
It's not even a wage.
Yes, it's not a wage, but when you talk about minimum wage, people think that anybody working is earning a minimum of 30,000 naira. That is government, and not even state governments. Not all state governments are paying.
Most state governments are not paying 30,000.
Then when it comes to private sector,
when it even comes to 30,000, bring 30,000 into this economy right now.
It is nothing.
It is nothing. Is it on transportation? By the time you remove what you spend on transportation, is it on feeding? Many of the families who earn this minimum wage are not even able to afford a decent one meal.
Yes, I like that word. A decent one meal. They
cannot afford a decent one meal a day.
Yes. I was listening to somebody speak the other day, and there was this argument. How many times do you eat a day? It was just boys.
Yes.
How many times do you eat in a day? Some will say 111. Some will say 010. That kind of thing.
Yes.
And there was this particular person who said 011. You understand it? In the morning you wouldn't eat. Afternoon you find something maybe to munch on, but by evening it would one. Not that guy doesn't want to eat in the morning or eat well in the afternoon. Yes. There is no food.
Of course. And that afternoon that I actually said one,
it might just be peanuts.
Of course. Maybe snacks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Maybe one gala. That's why one. And then they won. How one is the one? So the minimum wage is not enough. But let's forget about the minimum wage. First of all, the state governments are not paying. Not all of them. Just about 50% are paying that minimum wage. Edo State is doing well. They have upped their minimum wage to 40,000 naira. Commendable. Other states like Lagos, Rivers, they are maintaining that 30,000 minimum wage. But there are others that don't even pay that much. But then when it comes to private, the people, the SMEs, those people employed in SMEs don't earn that much. Some people are still earning, believe you me, 10,000 naira today, 15,000 naira, 12,000 naira, and that amount may be delayed. Tell me, it's Anthony Uko, if you are working in any 12,000 naira a day, assuming you don't have any dependents, you are earning 12,000 naira or 15,000 naira, and you see something to steal, to eat, you see food to steal and eat, wouldn't you do it?
That's a,
You know,
that,
people
that's
may
a very
talking about
tough
that. Yeah, it's a tough
situation.
situation. You
A
know,
very
for
tough
religious people will say,
situation
I can never steal. I can. It's a lie. When they see such situation, when they are in such a situation, they will steal. Look, a man. I don't want to bring issues with. I don't want to bring the Bible, but that was one. You remember in the book of Job, the Bible in the book of Job. That was one of the temptations that Satan actually meted upon Job. He said, "Your skin." He said flesh for flesh, and all of that included food. When Satan started dealing with Job, when he was allowed to deal with Job, the first thing he removed, not only that he killed his children, but all his sources of income, food, was affected. That is where he attacked him. That is to tell you that food that we eat is something important that not many people, and when I say not many people, only very few will say, I can't steal and I prefer to die. But when it comes to this stomach, why do you think people will sell their votes for 5,000 naira and happily receive the 5,000 naira and be cheering the person who they don't want to vote? It's all because of the stomach.
they have to eat.
They have to eat. I'm not supporting stealing. I'm not supporting anything like that. But when there are some situations you find yourself in that become life or death, or life and sickness. Now, all of this we're talking about goes straight or also tends to impact our health. If you don't eat well, you don't live a healthy life. So people are suffering. So when the government decided not to remove fuel subsidy, it was on compassionate grounds, and I agree with President Buhari. But we are still suffering this fuel subsidy issue.
Yes,
That is the
because the
problem.
more people cannot get fuel to go about their normal businesses,
Yes.
it even, let's say, impacts more
It impacts more.
on productivity, on economic activities.
Yes.
So
So we need really the next government that will come to power. We really need a strong leader, who will not just formulate but implement policies and make sure that this country is forcibly dragged or pulled out
does that
from.
mean you've written off this administration, that nothing can be done? It's still some months of before May 29. That's like 10 months from now. Are you saying Nigerians should wait from now till 10 months before we begin to see changes? Before some things are begin to put into place that can change the narrative, especially when it comes to fuel subsidy, when it comes to the fuel scarcity, and more so the fact that Nigeria is the only oil producing nation that still imports petroleum products. There are still things that can be done in the now before this government actually hands over to the next administration.
Yes, you have made a normative statement. What should be, but the statement is not positive. What is? There are still things that can be done. Agreed. Will those things be done? First of all, President Buhari right now is overwhelmed. There are so many problems confronting the president. You have insecurity, you have inflation. All of these things are confronting the president. When he tries to pull the plugs or whatever, in some areas, somebody is there to sabotage it. And then remember, we are in the year of election campaigning. Actually, the real electionary year is this year.
Yeah.
And so there is this proclivity for diversion of attention. People's attention, or people in government, their attention will tend to be diverted to issues. Do we say issues? Not issues. Who becomes the next president? People are having interests, and they want to make sure that those interests are actually nourished. And you agree also that so much is being expended to make sure that whoever is going to emerge as president is, get, the system is actually
Everything seems
yes,
to have turned
yes.
to
So the
elections.
point is,
So the economy
between
is
now,
not being
between now
taken care
and
of.
then,
Mm.
what can be done? I would say not much. Not much. We can only hope that maybe a miracle like the Dangote refinery will come on stream, and then, in a way, the federal government can assuage this problem. If that is possible, fine. If the Dangote refinery does not come on stream, I don't see how much the federal government will be able to do to make sure that this
Oh,
trend is reversed.
that's a very gloomy picture you've painted.
What do you think?
It still boils down to the same local refining,
There's a local refinery.
local refining, and we've also seen the NNPC becoming fully operational as a limited liability company is built for unveiling in the next few
And you
days.
made a point earlier that the NNPC has not been able to remit anything in the past few months to the federal government's coffers. Where is the federal government going to get all of this money from? Taxpayers. How many persons are working to get taxes from? Or how many companies are operating optimally? All of these things are issues. Because to collect taxes from people or companies, they have to be working. The population, not, we have a 33% unemployment rate. So the tax net is actually shrinking, and that is the fact. So if you have all of this going on, how does the government get taxes? And then from the oil money, there is subsidy. So I think there's not much that can be done between now and then. I hope, and that is my hope is hinged on miracles like Dangote refinery coming on stream. That may turn the tide a bit, but I don't see how much more can be changed. Let's hope for the best.
In the interim, do you think that um, the major marketers have called for a gradual an adjustment in the price? Like you pointed out, most of the places you bought fuel, you didn't buy it for 165,
No,
and a whole lot of
where do
people
you find fuel at 165
people are
now?
even still buying it at prices higher than the
Of course,
180.
yes.
People are buying for 200,
200.
250. They have even bought for 230.
I think the federal
So
government should just make that adjustment official. From the background, it's because the filling stations I buy from in the federal capital territory are, I would say, traditional filling stations that
yeah,
no matter how things have gone bad in the
bad.
past, they were always selling at government regulated or stipulated prices. Now, those same filling stations are selling for 180, 190. So it looks
Others
like,
are selling as high as 230.
yes, you go right here to Maraba, you see 230. That I bought a fuel there the other day. So that's what it is. And let's not kid ourselves. That is the fact.
And
So
the
from the background, the
marketers
thing is,
the marketers are saying if we have it at that, even though regulation is still on, if we have it at a slightly higher price, like
mhm,
you said, it will be more readily available,
yes,
so that Nigerians can
can
have some
do some
respite.
yes, that respite we really need it. So I think the federal government can just, this thing is like the Nigerians have already accepted it as a
Yeah.
reality. So just make it official so that people don't even go and steal
And
from
yes, and
because,
then
because
have to queue for
if-
long hours
yes,
and all that.
yes, because if you maintain that people must buy it at 165 and people are the same people are selling at 180 and coming back to the federal government to receive
To
subsidy
receive
at that
at that
165
165.
is still cheating.
Yes.
That's corruption. So I think the federal government should just allow this thing to go to 180, 190, if possible 200. Not that I can afford it, I'm a poor man, but at least it will bring some respite. That's how we want to call it a day on today's energy focus of Money Radio. Mr. Anthony Uko has been here, and we want to say thank you very much for being here again. We'll say thanks to our producers, but mainly we'll say thanks to you who follow us loyally on this program. We'll be back tomorrow with a fresh edition of the program, and that is the transportation segment of the program. Until then, have a great day.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.